HMS Belfast is a floating museum on the River Thames and a branch of the Imperial War Museum. It provides children of all ages with the opportunity to learn about naval history and become sailors for the day. School groups can keep in a ship in 1950s restored mess decks, experiencing life below decks and conditions at sea. At Homelands Primary School in Torquay, Russ Green is planning a trip to HMS Belfast with a class of Year 6 pupils who've been learning about the Second World War.
Our visit to HMS Belfast is going to sort of extend the information that you've already got on World War II.
Through literacy, I thought it'd be a good idea to develop their knowledge, build their historical knowledge, and then use that in a literacy context.
And you've done lots of brainstorming about the information you've already got and information you want to find out. But that's not the only reason we're going up to HMS Belfast. Anybody like to suggest any other reason why we might be going?
Find out things about HMS Belfast.
Good, yes. But we're also going to find out things about ourselves. Yeah? We're going on a residential visit. That involves not just learning about history and about London. Some of you have never been to London before. But it involves learning about yourself and the things that you can be independent in and the things that you can help one another with. As you move around the ship particularly, what might the hazards be, do you think? Imogen?
Tripping over.
Tripping, that's one of the biggest hazards on the ship.
The ladders, like if you're climbing up and down them.
Excellent.
When I thought about planning the visit, I initially set off looking for just a residential experience. We have various residential centres in the southwest, but none that could provide the sort of experience that I wanted my children to have. Plymouth is a very close city to us, and many of the children have seen large warships coming in and out, but have never had the experience of going on one, let alone sleeping on one. So the opportunity to be able to do that was just one that I couldn't miss.
Very often, most teachers tend to phone us up. The beauty in the education office that we have is that we're all ex-teachers, so we're very sensitive to teachers and their group's needs. And we're actually involved behind the scenes in terms of the bookings that we administer and the information that we give, as well as the fact that our team delivers the sessions as well. They can all come for a recce visit beforehand to suss out the nature of the environment. Most teachers sort of go down the fax or the email route, and if they don't get things through the post, then they can download resources from our website.
From the very off of planning the trip, it was nice to just be able to pull up the website for HMS Belfast so the children had an idea of what they'd be going to look at and the things that they could see. So in effect, they could plan their visit. So we spent a long time looking at that and the virtual tour that's on there. I've also been able to scan in images of, very powerful images I feel, of World War II that the children can then try and engage with and get some emotion into their writing. That was nice then to be able to go and investigate them on the ship and see if they can get a real feel for life on board ship and come back and expand their literacy work from that.
Museum learning doesn't stop at 4 o'clock in most museums. It happens in the evening, it happens at the weekends. Sleepovers offer a really exciting experience for children, and many museums do offer them, but they can be very difficult to organise, so you won't find them everywhere. It's always worth asking.
The logistics could be a nightmare, and it does depend on the group of children that you've got. A 7-hour journey is a long time for 10 and 11-year-old children. However, it's about negotiation with your coach company, making sure that they are aware of your children's needs, and you have to be firm about that, demanding 2 stops because toilets are a necessary thing, and also making sure that if the weather is going to be warm, then they've got plenty to drink with them, that everyone's got their travel sickness tablets, all those sorts of things. But ensuring as well that the children are aware that along the route there are other things for them to be involved in and to be looking at, so that from the very moment they set off on the coach, the trip has started and they're engaged in doing something useful. Well, I've been doing the trip now for 3 or 4 years, and every year I do a preliminary visit and go up and walk my route from even just around HMS Belfast to the restaurant I'm taking the children to. I go to the Tower of London, and all the other activities I walk it through and make notes about any changes from the previous year so that I can come back to school, alter my risk assessments and make sure that my governors are fully informed about any risks that could be there and what I'm doing to make sure that those risks are catered for.
We offer free complimentary tickets to teachers, and they're valid throughout the year so that they can come either during school time with colleagues or in their own time at weekends. We do encourage teachers to do that, just really to appreciate the nature of the site. The fact that she's such a big ship and can be easy to get lost in is quite off-putting when some people first arrive. This is where you sleep, so you're right next to your hatches. In terms of sort of procedural guidelines, we offer risk assessments both on day visits and our sleepover accommodation, and every group who stays on board as part of the Keeping the Ship project has a safety briefing and evacuation procedures gone through with the concierge that night.
Welcome to HMS Belfast. Now, you're going to stop on board overnight. Real sailors' bunks. New mattresses though. You'll have a good time while you stay on board. Now just a couple of things that I need to run past you for your own safety while you're down here. You'll see that we don't use the top bunks, we just use the lower two. I'm sure some of you will be tempted to take your shoes off while you're down here. Just be a little bit careful about jumping down from the bunks if you've got your socks on, because you'll tend to just slip a little bit if you do. So just be careful and how you use them. For a sleepover, just bring as little luggage as possible, but remembering the sleeping bag. Trousers for the girls, flat shoes, sensible shoes, and backpacks are a great boon because you've got your hands free for moving around the ship. We always, when the children arrive, make certain that they understand the nature of the mess decks, that they are authentic 1950s bunks, so that we ask them to treat them with care and consideration.
After a night on the ship, the class starts the day in the Educational Facilities Suite.
If you'd like to just fill up from the front row. Okay, if you can start the second row. Men were never dry, always cold and short of sleep. The ships overworked and desperately needing time for maintenance. Every second of each hour of every day, the secret fear of freezing to death. That was how one sailor described life on board the HMS Belfast.
I think the biggest benefit is that you learn more that you don't get in a classroom. So you actually get out and you get to see the sort of size of a ship, and only by seeing the ship do you understand the conditions on board and what it was like for the men who had to live here, work here, put up with the sort of conditions that you just can't appreciate in a schoolroom.
You don't see many warships along the River Thames, do you?
We actually are not just the teachers, but we also take our bookings. So the teacher, when they ring up, are talking to the person who's going to deliver the talk. So if they want to focus on a specific angle, then we're more than happy to follow that focus for them. So we've had groups who have wanted to focus specifically on mathematics and the gunnery, and so we put together a whole session from scratch.
Now they're looking very smart in their jackets, but we also need to finish the look with their caps.
As well as history, I think it really hits the citizenship curriculum, which is becoming so popular in schools now, and you really get an idea of what it means to have to work together on a ship like this.
What makes you think that that might be a captain and that's just an ordinary sailor?
Little badges on the side.
Very good.
And the education staff really show you how to use the resources well. The way that they deliver information to the children, the way that they allow the children to investigate and explore themselves, and the way that they question the children is exceptional. It's really, really good.
A flower or a star? The star shows that this sailor's passed his first exams.
The staff who are working with the school are all trained teachers, and that's true of many of the people who work in museums. So what it means is that when you are going to a museum and you're planning and developing your session, you will have people there who will understand teaching and learning.
For older children, we look a lot more at the sort of political situation, so why it was that Russia suddenly becomes an ally of Britain. Also, I would ask them a lot about what's happening in Europe at the time of the convoys.
When I first started planning my visit to HMS Belfast, I took them up on their offer of their education pack. They've had that under development and have added to it each year. Because I've been so many times now and I know the resource fairly well, I tend not to use their pack. I've sort of adapted things, and I can now prompt my children on what to go and look for and the things that I want them to investigate, as well as the things that they'd like to go and have a look at. So I tend not to use it as much anymore.
Okay guys, so all the spaces and all the bits and pieces that Nairi was just talking about in your session in the schoolroom are all going to start to come to life even more, because this layout that your teachers are going to have will give you all the different zones that you can explore for the rest of the morning.
That is much, much lower in the ship. And once we get up there, if you look, these gun turrets, the workings of them go right down through the whole of the ship. We'll go and see it all, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The pupils are able to visit all 9 decks of the ship, which is actually divided into 8 zones, lots of ladders, which they thoroughly enjoy. The beauty about the HMS Belfast, because it's a real living object that they can interact with, is that we very much encourage them to touch the site. It's not a hands-off display. We want them to prod things and poke things, and that's very much an essence of what they get down in the boiler and the engine rooms, which are sort of the bowels of the ship.
It's really nice because like it's old-fashioned and like you can tell that it was obviously in the war.
It's amazing to see like, how it worked during the war and stuff.
I think it's like really nice that it's all still here. There's like original notes.
You think back to the work we were doing in the classroom and the photographs that we looked at about life on board ship. You're now below the waterline, so you've now trapped below decks. It's very, very hot down here because these are all carrying steam and all that sort of stuff to drive the ship. There could be a battle going on and you don't know what's happening.
If I were to take the trip again next year, I think I would perhaps give the children more time on board HMS Belfast. Some of the children said they didn't get a chance to see everything that they wanted to see, and that's a real shame because that was the whole purpose of going. So it was the time factor on board ship that would change.
In Torquay, the class follows up their visit to HMS Belfast.
The children themselves have made decisions about some of the things that they'd like to investigate on return from HMS Belfast. I'd planned quite a large literacy input, but the children have asked if they could go off into design and technology and art, building the front end of the ship, looking at other artwork from the war, so propaganda posters and those sorts of things. They've become interested in that.
The fact that we were on a Second World War battleship, because it's like a one-in-a-lifetime experience, so I just thought that was really cool.
I think it's a pretty good resource for information about World War II, and it was like during war at sea.
Out of everything, the best thing was kipping on a ship.
I enjoyed everything except the coach drive on the way there and the way back.
I think it's one of the most valuable experiences taking children on residential for a multitude of different things. There's the educational side of things, but there's also a huge PSHE input that goes on while you're there. And from the children's point of view, they get to see their teachers and their support staff in a very different light. It's in an informal setting, and they get to speak to you in a very different way. And I think that's just as important as the educational side.